Well, thank you all for joining us. I'm sorry that it took me a minute to get, my computer is just not being happy today. I'm Beverly Adams, the A&R program assistant for the Forsyth County Extension Office. This is our third and final session in our July gardening series. In our previous presentations, Shannon and Heather have taught you about integrated pest management and harvesting tips and techniques. So today we're going to talk about seed saving. We're going to be going over why folks save seeds, how to save seeds, what are some different types of seeds that we save, and where and how to store them once you have them extracted or harvested. So why do people save seeds? Seed savers help to conserve rare seed sources, older varieties, and local varieties may be limited in availability. So by saving the seed, you become part of the important effort in seed conservation. Seed saving involves selecting suitable plants from which to save seed, harvesting seeds at the right time, and storing them properly over the winter. So why are some reasons that people save seeds? Today, gardeners have many reasons as to why they save seeds. Probably the most important or the number one reason would be for money savings. Every time you buy a seed variety, you invest in your future. Seeds can be expensive. And if you save your own, you can take that expense from your gardening budget. Regional adaptation. Most commercially available seed have been selected because it performs well across the entire country. And when you have seed from the best performing plants grown on your own land and with your own unique cultural conditions, you gradually develop varieties that are better adapted to your soil, climate, and growing practices. Another reason is consistent quality. To keep your prices to keep their prices competitive when producing open pollinated seed crops, large seed suppliers rarely rogue the fields to pull out inferior or off-type plants. This means the open pollinated seed they sell to retail seed companies may have a lot of off-types in it. For gardeners and market farmers, that translates to loss of production per foot of row. To avoid this loss, you can either save your own seed or pay more for premium seed produced by small organic producers whose seeds cost more because they properly select for uniformity and rogue out any plants that are not true to type. Just joy of learning. Some people are drawn to the science of seed saving because they want to take their gardening experience to a higher level. The more seeds you save, the more you inevitably learn about botany and the plant kingdom. Heirloom varieties. Some folks like to grow heirloom varieties because doing so gives them a connection to their garden heritage. Influence crop traits. The plant's genetic pools are incredibly rich and diverse in traits. By carefully observing your plants, you can save seed from those plants that best meet your needs for germination, ripening time, yield, specific fruit shape, flavor, storage, qualities, less seediness, better disease resistant, bloom color, or other unique traits within the variety. With time, most of the plants you grow will have your desired traits. And also, when you save your own seeds, you're joining a chain of farmers, gardeners, and seed savers that dates back to the Stone Age. Seed varieties, there's two broad categories of seed varieties. There's the open pollinated or OP and F1 hybrids. Open pollinated varieties are developed with the goal of producing an improved variety with important characteristics that will be true to type from one generation to the next. This means you can save seed of open pollinated varieties and the next generation, it will perform largely the same as the current. F1 hybrid varieties are produced through a multi-step process. The first step is to develop inbred lines, which are populations that are developed with extreme uniformity between the individuals. Two inbred lines are then crossed, and the resulting seed are sold as F1 hybrid seed. The F1 refers to the first filial generation. Saving seed from an F1 hybrid variety will not breed true to type, meaning that these seeds will not grow into plants that are identical to the F1 hybrids. The next generation F2 seed segregates into individuals with many different traits. The downside of this is that saved seed will not perform as well as the original F1 hybrid seed. Although you cannot save the seed from F1 plants and expect it to be true to type, there are some advantages of F1 seeds. Generally, they will perform very well because it exhibits higher hybrid vigor. That is, it will perform better than the parents that contributed to the F1 population, with good yields and uniform performance from one individual to the next. F1 seed are generally more expensive than open pollinated seed, but the increased vigor can make it worthwhile. Hybrid varieties will be labeled in catalogs and on seed packets as hybrid or F1. There are two main types of open pollinated varieties. They're self-pollinating and cross-pollinating. The easiest crops to save seed from are peas, beans, tomatoes, and peppers, all of which are self-pollinating crops. Self-pollinated plants pollinate themselves usually before the flower opens. The seed that you save from these plants the seed that you save from these plants and grow the next year will yield plants just like the original ones. To maintain the plant's genetic diversity, you should ideally grow and save seed from 20 or more plants. If you save seed from one self-pollinating plant, the plant will reproduce, but you are narrowing its genetic diversity. So unlike self-pollinating plants, cross-pollinating plants, such as brassicas, corn, carrots, beets, squash, cucumbers, and melons, must receive pollen, and that's usually via wind or from insects, from other plants of the same variety to produce viable true-to-type seed. Cross-pollinating seed crops need to be isolated from other varieties of the same species. The simplest solution is to grow only one variety of a given species. You can save seed from just one or two plants, but to maintain long-term health and vigor, you should buy new seed every few years unless you can collect from much larger populations than the 20 plants recommended for self-pollinators. Grow a minimum of 50 to 100 plants and at least 200 for corn. And everybody can still hear me okay, correct? Okay. So there's three types of fruits and seeds. There's the fleshy fruits, such as berries that have pulp surrounding the seed from which the seeds need to be extracted. In dry fruits, such as grains, the fruit wall becomes part of the seed. In species which form seed pods, seeds may have to be extracted from the seed pod, such as in the case of the radish in the lower right-hand corner. Some seeds require a fermentation process to remove germination inhibiting substances from the seed coat. The process of fermentation mimics the natural processes that take place as fruit rots or pass through the gut of an animal. It can increase germination rates and kill some seed-borne pathogens. Fermentation is required for tomatoes and cucumbers. So what you will do is place the seeds in the pulp in a container, add water to the seed pulp mixture only if the mash is too thick to stir. Place the container in a warm location, ideally about 72 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Stir the fermenting mixture 2 or 3 times a day to aerate it and facilitate even fermentation. It can take anywhere from 48 to 72 hours. A small amount of white mold, it may appear on top of the mash, not harmful, and just stir that back in. Closely monitor the seed for sprouting. Although damage may begin earlier, sprouting is a sure sign that the seed has soaked too long and that damage has occurred. If the gel around the seed is completely gone, then the process is complete. These are some photos of the fermentation process illustrated. On the left-hand side, that's fermentation with tomato seeds. And on the right-hand side, those are cucumber seeds. Rinsing. Rinsing separates the pulps from the seed. And it's done with a strainer and pressurized water. You may need to use your hands to facilitate the removal of the pulp. And I see that they have one with a strainer and a water hose. Of course, you wouldn't want to go full blast with that because all your seed are going to go everywhere. Just a good steady flow of water should be fine. Drying wet vegetable seeds. After thorough rinsing, you're going to pat the bottom of a strainer with a cloth towel. Let it dry for a few hours. Spread the seeds on plastic, glass, or ceramic plate to dry. Don't use paper or even wax paper. Use only non-sticking material, because then you'll just have your seeds stuck to the paper or stuff like that, and you won't be able to separate them very well. You'll want to spread them into a single layer to help with the drying. A screen is ideal for faster drying. Keep them in an airy, dry location, such as an air-conditioned room at low humidity. It can take several weeks for the seeds to reach the desired dryness. Make sure you label them. That's very important. Label your seeds so you know what seeds you've harvested and what you have. This is how to extract tomatillo seeds. They have very, very small seeds, and so it's kind of hard to do that. So we'll go through that process here. The pulp around them is firm and not easily separated. So you may use the following steps to extract and save tomatillo seeds. So the tomatillo is ripe and the seeds are ready to collect when the fruit has filled out the paper lantern wrapper that you see in that first photo. And when it begins to split and dry at the base, then you're going to remove the wrappers and cut up the fruit into wedges and place it in a blender. The seeds are small and robust and will not be damaged by the blade. And after blending using low speed, you'll end up with a bright green tomatillo slurry. So pour that slurry into a tall container like a mason jar or glass jar so you can see the seeds. You're going to add some water to that. The good viable seed will sink down to the bottom of the container, and you're going to pour off the floating green slurry and any floating seeds and add water and do that pouring process again until the water is clear and the seeds at the bottom are all that's left. Then you're going to filter out the seeds and lay them out evenly on a glass or plastic plate or screen and let them dry. So in these photos, you'll see the first process where you put it in the jar itself and then pouring off that top layer, and the good viable seeds are down in the bottom of the mason jar. Okay, so now we're going to go over just how to extract seeds from some different types of vegetables, and I believe there's some fruits in there as well. So harvesting tomato, you're going to allow the fruits to ripen fully and scoop out the seeds along with the gel surrounding them before you eat or cook the tomatoes. Put the seeds and the gel in a glass jar with some water. You're going to stir or swirl the mixture twice a day, and the mixture will ferment and the seeds sink to the bottom within about 5 days. And then pour off the liquid and rinse the seeds and dry before you store them. and we have tried this process here at the Extension office. Our admin, Sharon, she tried it, and it worked pretty well. Peppers, you're going to allow some of the fruits to stay on the plants until they become fully ripe and they start to wrinkle. Then remove the seeds from the peppers, and again, spread them out to dry. Drying is very important for the seeds, so there won't be any mildew or any molding or anything like that happens to them. For the peas and the beans, you're going to allow the pods to ripen on the plants until they're dry and starting to turn brown, like the picture here on the slide, with the seeds rattling inside. As long as a month after harvest, the peas or beans. So that could be a month after you've collected them. It will be ready for them, for you to collect or harvest the seeds. Strip the pods from the plants and spread them out to dry indoors. Dry for at least 2 weeks before shelling, or you can just leave the seeds for these in the pods until planting time. So we're going to go over some of the ways to harvest seeds from herbs. When you're harvesting seeds from herbs and flowers, it's important to clean as much of the dried flower parts as possible. This reduces disease and weed seed from growing along with your selection. This is true for herbs such as dill and basil, where the seeds are not only small but also enclosed in dried flower parts. So here you'll see the example of the dill flower seeds and also the basil flower spike with seeds. Collect only completely dried flower spikes and crush the flowers and gently tease apart the chaff from the seeds. Seeds are small and it's helpful to work on a brightly covered surface to see them easily. So when collecting seeds from flowers, you do not want a dead head. Instead, wait for the petal to drop and expose the dried seeds. Cut the entire flower. There are several methods, each best adapted for a particular flower. The first method is to place the flower in a paper bag and shake it vigorously, and then pick the clean seeds from the bottom and discard the chaff. Second method works for small to medium-sized seeds. Spread the dried flowers on a paper towel and then just rub them gently, and then use some tweezers to pick the clean seeds, and again, discard the chaff. The third method is used for larger and heavier seeds. What you're going to do is crush the dried flower in your hand and blow it gently, and then the lighter chaff will be blown away and it'll leave the seeds in your hand. There's also the last method. This works well for seeds which have fluff attached to each seed. For example, milkweeds. So you're place the entire seed pod in a piece of an old stocking, which has been cut like a tube, and then rub gently, and the fluff will separate from the seeds and get stuck on the inside of the stocking. Make sure you discard any seeds that are small, because these are not viable seeds. And you can see in the photo the size difference between the viable and non-viable seeds. This is another example of size difference between viable and non-viable seeds. There's a big difference between these. Select only the largest, plumpest seeds. Now we're going to talk about our seed storage, that now that we've got them harvested. Seed storage is the last step in seed saving and a critical one, as it can affect viability of your seed in next year's crop. You're going to store the clean and dried seeds in airtight containers. It's recommended like a glass jar with a gasketed lid. For small quantities of seeds, you can place each type separately in a paper envelope and then put several in the jar. You want to label each envelope and container quickly with the type and variety of the plant and the date of harvest. A good rule of thumb for determining if storage conditions are appropriate is that the sum of the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit and the relative humidity, which is expressed as a percentage, should not exceed 100. So for example, if your seeds are stored at 45 degrees Fahrenheit, they should not be exposed to a relative humidity that is greater than 55%. The key to successful long-term seed storage is keeping your seeds cool, dark, and dry. If you store your seeds where the air is moist, they may sprout and or become mildewed. Cool and dry place, such as a closet or cupboard, is a good way to store seeds. A better way is in airtight containers in the refrigerator. The ideal conditions are dryness of 5 to 7% moisture content by weight and stored several degrees below freezing. So several problems can develop during storage. Fluctuations in temperature or moisture levels of stored seed that lowers the seed's longevity, causing loss of viability and vigor or even seed death. High temps can dry out the seed and may damage the embryo, thereby reducing germination in some species. Seeds that are air dried during humid weather require additional drying with desiccants such as the silica gel before final storage. Most seeds benefit from drying with silica gel if they are to be stored for a very long time. Place a bag of silica gel with seeds for 7 to 8 days. Make sure that you remove it after 7 to 8 days or the seeds may become too dry. And what the silica gel is a lot of you may have bought shoes before or something like that, and it comes in the container, in the box, those little things that say do not eat. Of course, you don't want to eat it, but it helps to get the moisture out. A common problem with stored seeds is mold or mildew resulting from incomplete drying before storage. So dry your seeds thoroughly before you store them. If seeds sweat on the inside of jars, they are too wet and you need to dry them further to store successfully. If that happens, you can again use some of the silica gel packets, and that's a good idea to help with that. And don't wait long because damp seeds will mildew quickly. And again, that silica gel absorbs excess moisture. Another common problem with stored seeds is infestation by weevils or other insects. In fact, it's best to assume that some insects are present in any sample of seeds. Seeds kept in frozen storage are safe from insect damage since though insects may survive the freezing, they will be rendered inactive while frozen by the low temperature. Insect infestations may be guarded against by the addition of a little diatomaceous earth to the seeds in their jars. You just want to add enough of the diatomaceous earth to cover the surfaces of the seed, and that will ensure their long-term safety. It's an inexpensive, safe, non-toxic, and wise precaution. Rats, mice, raccoons, birds, and other animals can make serious inroads on your seed supply. So prevent this loss by storing seeds in tightly closed glass or metal containers rather than in the paper envelopes, which are easily broken into. Light, heat, and moisture are enemies of your seeds. Seed longevity increases as storage temperature decreases. A dry seed or pod shatters when bent or hammered. Plastic bags and containers are not the best moisture barriers. The refrigerator is too humid for seeds in open containers. Paper bags or plastic bags use glass containers with lids with gaskets. Because you don't put seeds in the freezer until they are very dry, icicles do not ice crystals do not form in the seed the way they do in fruit. Always let your refrigerated seeds warm to room temperature before opening the container. So when you do take them out and you are ready to plant them, let them set out for a while and get at warm temperature or room temperature before you plant them. Okay, so how long will your seeds last? Different types of seeds have different lifespans. Many retain good germination for only a few years, while others, they can stay viable for a lot longer. In general, pepper seeds maintain good germination rates for 4 years. Legumes and carrots, 3 years. Squash, beet, eggplant, tomato, and brassicas, 4 to 5 years. Cucumber and lettuce for 5 years. Exact storage conditions affect the longevity greatly, however, and seeds from some of these crops can last 10 years or more. So in this illustration or this graph on the, it's not a graph, on the slide, you can see the different species and the years their seeds will last. Also, a good way to dry your seed, go back to drying your seed, I meant to mention this earlier. What my mom used to do is she would place them on the paper towels or in the paper plates, and she would put them in, which it may be too hot to do this right now, she would put them in the back window of the car and just let them lay there and get good and dry before she put them up. So there's another way. Is that okay to say, Shannon? Okay, so a good way to find out what percentage of your seeds are viable is to place 25 seeds on a moist paper towel. You're going to roll up the towel and place it in a plastic bag with a small opening in the lock to allow some air, but not too large for the towel to dry out. You're going to keep it on a warm spot for a constant and minimum temperature of 75 degrees. Some seeds require less than 75. A good place, one of our master gardeners recommended placing it behind your refrigerator on the little cools. I believe he placed them on the cools, and that he learned his germination percentage by placing his there. You're going to check them daily and make your first count after 7 days and your second count at 14 days, and use the total to compute the rate. In the case of this slide with these seeds, 23 seeds appear to have germinated out of the 25, which is a 92% germination rate. It's also an excellent way to find out if and how many of your seeds are viable before you plant them. So if you'll follow these steps for proper seed selection or collection, drying, and storing, you should enjoy a healthy, happy garden. Here's are some additional resources which you may find useful. There's some books here. I'll leave this slide up for a moment in case some folks want to write down the name of these books, or I can email them to you if you would like. So we'll just pause for a moment and give you a few minutes. And I wanted to share our contact information. As always, we're here to help you. If you have any problems with your plants, if they're some kind of disease, they look diseased or sick, plants, trees, grass, anything like that, please make sure that you reach out to us and we can give you some good information and try to help you with that. If me and Shannon cannot figure it out, we can send it out to the UGA lab and they can let us know what's going on with them. I don't know how that changed, but it just did. This is our contact information, our phone number. Actually, this email needs to be changed. It's forsyth.extension@uga.edu. There's our Facebook and website information. We appreciate all of you being on the presentation and supporting extension. We really do. And don't forget, if you have any questions, just email Shannon or myself or Heather, and we'll do everything we can to help you. And I hope you all have a great